Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me for another Alfred Hitchcock Presents review. Today I'll be talking about Season 2, Episode 31, The Night the World Ended, starring Russell Collins as Johnny and Harold J. Stone as Mr. Halloran. And this is a perfectly acceptable, entertaining episode, in my opinion. It's one of those episodes that kind of has a premise that you just have to go with. It's kind of unbelievable in some ways, but I think the episode mostly gets away with it and pulls it off. Unfortunately, there are a few aspects to this episode I had some issues with, which I will get into, but overall, I think this is a solid, entertaining episode that I recommend. So we start with some men in a bar, and they're chatting, and one of them is Mr. Halloran. He's an important character, and we find out that this guy really likes to tell practical jokes, which, as we'll find out throughout the episode, is not really a very good idea. We are then introduced to our main character, Johnny, who comes up to the bar to talk to these men, Mr. Halloran specifically, and Johnny sees a newspaper that says the world is going to end at 11:45 that night, and he takes this very seriously. He's pretty worried about it, even though I, as an audience member, already knew that this was definitely a joke. But anyway, Johnny really takes this to heart, and when he leaves the bar, Halloran and the other men are laughing. They think this is really funny. So Johnny's going around town, figuring since the world's going to end, he's going to live it up a little bit, I guess is a good way to say it. So he goes into a place to buy some drinks, some liquor, and he tells the man there that the world is ending. Of course, the man doesn't believe him, but ultimately Johnny steals the liquor when the man won't give it to him. So now the police are after this guy, and he's hiding and drinking, but ultimately he winds up falling by some women who has some dogs with her. Her name is Miss Green. So being a nice lady, she invites him back to her house. Johnny's still thinking the world is ending all this time. So they chat, and we learn that Johnny's had some personal tragedy. He lost a wife and a child, which definitely isn't good. And I do have to say that I did feel some for Johnny at this point, so I thought the episode did a good job there. But more on that part of the episode in a little bit. So at this point, Johnny tells Miss Green the world's going to end, but he's glad he can at least spend the end of it with a nice lady like her. So Miss Green freaks out at this point, and she gets scared. So Johnny gets kicked out. So now he has probably even more police after him, even though I'm sure they're still looking for him from before. So Johnny's on the move again when he runs into some kids that live on the street, I guess. They have no homes or no families. So Johnny decides he's going to get them some gifts, some things they want. And here's where my issues with the episode begin. He decides he's going to break into a store and get them some things. So if you take into account that this character thinks the world is ending, fine, I can go with that. But I do have to say this is a bizarre scene. We see the kids like throwing darts, riding bikes, things like that. The scene kind of feels out of place in the episode. It's very over dramatic in my opinion, and kind of strange, but it's also kind of interesting to watch in a strange way. So ultimately things are going okay until Johnny decides to show one of the kids how to load a gun, and we know where this is going. This is probably not a good idea. Like I said, Johnny, not one of the smarter Alfred Hitchcock Presents characters. So ultimately, I think it's a security guard that comes, because he says, wait till the police come, but I'm not really sure what his profession was, but ultimately, Johnny decides to shoot this guy. Now, here's where my issues begin. Even if the world's ending, it doesn't really justify killing someone. In my opinion, you should still probably act like a civilized person. Some people might find this part of the plot to their satisfaction. I thought this was very contrived, and it took some of the sympathy I had for Johnny away. Although I guess you could also call him a complex character, so it kind of works. But so at this point, Johnny, leaves the store, and he's still kind of on the run, and he sees all these different newspapers with headlines on them, but none of them have the headline about the world ending. So he finally puts two and two together, and Johnny knows now that a joke was played on him. So I guess with nothing left to lose at this point, he goes back to see Halloran again, and he actually ultimately shoots him, and it happens at 11:45 p.m., which was the time that the world was supposed to end. And I guess at least the world on the earth did end for Halloran at this point. So a pretty good and fitting twist to the end of the episode. Like I said, I just thought there were some inconsistencies in some of the dramatic elements of some of the scenes. A little bit all over the place at times, but ultimately I do think The Night the World Ended is a solid episode, and I'm going to give it 3 out of 5, and I do recommend this one at least as a one-time watch for fans of the show. So 3 out of 5 for The Night the World Ended. And as always, thank you very much for watching.